My name is Sierra Coates, and at 26, I made a decision that would forever change the trajectory of my life. I dropped out of Harvard Law School 3 months before graduation, walking away from a guaranteed position at one of Boston's most prestigious firms. My family called me delusional, my brother Marcus laughed in my face, and my parents threatened to cut me off completely. They had no idea that 5 years later I would be signing papers to acquire the very law firm where Marcus worked, effectively becoming his boss. But before I tell you about that sweet moment of vindication, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button, because this is a story about proving everyone wrong when they least expect it. Growing up in the affluent suburb of Westchester, New York, success had a very specific definition in the Coates household. My father, Judge Harrison Coates, had built his reputation on the federal bench over 25 years. My mother, Patricia, was a corporate litigator who had never lost a major case. Their expectations for their children were clear, unwavering, and absolutely non-negotiable. Excellence wasn't encouraged, it was demanded. Marcus, 3 years older than me, had followed the predetermined path perfectly. Valedictorian at prep school, summa cum laude at Yale, Harvard Law Review, and a starting position at Whitman, Hayes and Associates, one of Boston's most exclusive white shoe firms. He was everything my parents wanted in a son, polished, ambitious, and utterly conventional. I was different from the beginning. While Marcus memorized case law for fun, I was taking apart computers and rebuilding them in our basement. While he participated in mock trial competitions, I was teaching myself programming languages and building websites for local businesses. My parents tolerated my technological interests as a quirky hobby, but they never doubted I would eventually see reason and pursue a proper career in law. The pressure intensified throughout high school. Despite my obvious aptitude for technology, my parents insisted I take pre-law courses and participate in debate team. I complied, earning excellent grades and even winning several forensics competitions, but my heart wasn't in it. Every evening spent studying constitutional law was an evening I could have spent learning new programming languages or exploring emerging technologies. College at Princeton was more of the same. I majored in political science with a minor in computer science, the compromise my parents allowed to keep me focused on law school preparation. During the summers, while Marcus interned at prestigious firms, I secretly worked for tech startups, gaining real-world experience in software development and digital marketing. I told my parents I was doing research for my senior thesis. The day I received my Harvard Law acceptance letter, my parents threw a celebration dinner. The dining room table groaned under my mother's finest china, and Dad broke out the champagne he'd been saving for special occasions. Marcus flew in from Boston, where he was already establishing himself as a rising star in corporate litigation. "To Sierra," Dad announced, raising his glass, "the future lawyer in the family. With both our children at Harvard Law, the Coates legal dynasty is secure." I smiled and nodded, playing the part they expected, but inside I felt like I was drowning. The weight of their expectations pressed down on me like a physical force. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering how I had let my life drift so far from what I actually wanted. Harvard Law School was everything I had feared it would be: competitive, rigid, and completely removed from the technological innovation that fascinated me. While my classmates debated tort reform, I found myself dreaming about artificial intelligence and machine learning. During lectures on corporate mergers, I sketched out ideas for apps that could revolutionize how small businesses managed their operations. My professors noticed my distraction. "Miss Coates," Professor Williams said during a particularly dry discussion of securities law, "perhaps you could enlighten us with your thoughts on the Sarbanes-Oxley Act instead of whatever you're typing on that laptop." The class snickered as I minimized the code I had been working on. I stumbled through an answer about corporate transparency, but my mind was still on the elegant solution I had been developing for automated compliance checking. The disconnect between my studies and my interests grew wider each semester. I maintained decent grades, enough to satisfy my parents' expectations, but I was miserable. Meanwhile, my secret side projects were gaining traction. A simple app I had created to help restaurants manage inventory was being used by over 50 establishments in the Boston area. A web platform I had built for freelance graphic designers was generating actual revenue. By my third year, the cognitive dissonance became unbearable. I was spending more time on my technology projects than on my legal studies, and the results showed. While my apps were attracting investors and my consulting clients were referring new business, my class rank was slipping. The breaking point came during a particularly brutal week in March. I was supposed to be preparing for the bar exam while simultaneously finishing my law review article on intellectual property law. Instead, I found myself in the MIT library at 3 in the morning, working on a revolutionary piece of software that could automate legal research using natural language processing. The contrast between my two worlds couldn't have been starker. In the law library, I struggled to maintain focus while researching precedents for my article on software patents. But in the computer science building, I was creating algorithms that could analyze thousands of legal documents in minutes, identifying patterns and connections that would take human researchers days to discover. My law professors had begun to notice my distraction. During a contracts class, Professor Martinez called on me to explain the doctrine of promissory estoppel. I fumbled through the answer, my mind still processing the debugging session I'd completed that morning for my legal research platform. "Miss Coates," Professor Martinez said after class, "you seem disengaged lately. Law review is demanding, but you can't let it affect your coursework. Have you considered dropping some of your extracurricular activities?" If only she knew that my extracurricular activities were generating more revenue than most law graduates would earn in their first year of practice. But I simply nodded and promised to refocus. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was using my legal education to inform my technology work, but my parents would never see it that way. To them, technology was still a hobby, law was the only serious career path. My roommate, Jennifer, had started to notice the late nights and constant coding. "Sierra, when's the last time you actually studied for law school instead of working on your computer?" she asked one morning as I stumbled in from another all-nighter. "I study," I protested weakly. "No, you memorize enough to pass exams," she corrected. "But your heart isn't in it. Everyone can see it." Her observation struck home because it was undeniably true. While my classmates were networking with alumni and competing for summer associate positions at prestigious firms, I was building something that could potentially revolutionize the entire legal industry. The validation came in unexpected ways. A partner at a mid-sized Boston firm had discovered my legal research tool through a mutual connection and asked for a demonstration. I met him at his office on a Friday afternoon, nervous but excited to show what I'd built. "This is remarkable," he said after watching my software analyze a complex merger agreement in under 3 minutes. "Our associates would need hours to accomplish what your program just did. How did you develop this while in law school?" "I've been working on it during my free time," I explained, though free time was a generous description of the sleep-deprived hours I'd stolen from my studies. "Would you be interested in licensing this to our firm? We'd be willing to pay a significant monthly fee for access." That conversation marked the moment when my technology work stopped being a hobby and became a legitimate business opportunity. Within 2 weeks, I had signed my first commercial licensing agreement, generating $5,000 in monthly recurring revenue. But even this success couldn't overcome the growing cognitive dissonance between my academic pursuits and my entrepreneurial activities. I was living a double life, pretending to be a dedicated law student while actually building a technology company. The crisis deepened when I received an email from the Harvard Law Review editor-in-chief. My article on intellectual property law was due in 1 week, but I hadn't written a single page. Every spare moment had been devoted to improving my software platform and responding to inquiries from potential clients. I spent that weekend in my apartment, laptop open to a blank document, trying to force myself to write about software patents and copyright law. But my mind kept drifting to the machine learning algorithms I was developing, the natural language processing improvements I wanted to implement, and the business plan I'd been drafting for potential investors. At 2 in the morning on Sunday, I closed the laptop without having written a single paragraph. The law review article would have to wait. I had more important work to do. That morning, as dawn broke over Cambridge, I made the decision that would change everything. I was going to drop out of law school and pursue my real passion. I just had to figure out how to tell my family without causing a complete rift. The decision crystallized during a phone call with my high school computer science teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez. I had reached out to her seeking advice about a technical challenge I was facing with my software platform. "Sierra," she said after I explained my situation, "you were always my most talented student. I'm not surprised you've built something impressive. But I am surprised you're trying to balance this with law school. These kinds of opportunities don't wait for convenient timing." "My parents expect me to finish law school," I explained. "They've made significant sacrifices to support my education." "And what sacrifices are you making by not pursuing your true calling?" she asked gently. "Sometimes the greatest respect we can show for our parents' investment is to use our talents fully, even if it's not in the way they originally envisioned." Her words echoed in my mind as I walked through Harvard Yard that evening. Students hurried past with law books tucked under their arms, heading to study groups and mock trial practice. A year ago, I had been one of them, believing that this path led to the only meaningful definition of success. Now I saw it differently. Success wasn't about following a predetermined path, it was about creating value in the world using your unique talents and perspective. My software was already helping lawyers work more efficiently. With proper focus and resources, it could transform the entire legal profession. But first, I had to have some very difficult conversations with the people who mattered most to me. I started with Marcus, thinking he might be more understanding than our parents. We met for lunch at our usual spot near his office in downtown Boston. The restaurant was filled with lawyers and financial professionals, all wearing expensive suits and discussing deals worth millions of dollars. "You look tired," Marcus observed as we sat down. "Law school finally catching up with you?" "Actually, I wanted to talk to you about that," I began, my heart racing. "I've been thinking about making some changes." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Changes? You're 3 months from graduation, Sierra. This isn't the time for changes." I took a deep breath. "I'm thinking about dropping out." The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus stared at me as if I had announced my intention to join a cult. "You're joking," he said finally. "This is some kind of stress-induced breakdown, right? You just need to push through the last few months." "I'm not joking, and I'm not having a breakdown," I replied firmly. "I've been building technology companies on the side, and they're actually successful. I have investors interested in funding a major expansion. This is what I want to do with my life." Marcus leaned back in his chair, his expression shifting from confusion to condescension. "Sierra, you're talking about throwing away 3 years of elite education for what? Some apps? Do you have any idea how privileged you are to have gotten into Harvard Law? How many people would kill for your opportunities?" "I understand the privilege," I said quietly, "but privilege doesn't mean I have to be miserable pursuing something I don't love." "Love?" Marcus laughed, the sound harsh and dismissive. "This isn't about love, Sierra. This is about responsibility. You have a family legacy to uphold. Dad is a federal judge, Mom is a partner at one of the most respected firms in the city, and I'm on track to make junior partner at Whitman Hayes. What do you think it says about our family if one of us drops out to play with computers?" His words stung, but they also crystallized something for me. This wasn't about my future, it was about their image. "Maybe it says that our family is more than just lawyers," I suggested. "No," Marcus said firmly. "It says that one of us isn't serious about success. Look, I get it. Law school is hard, the pressure is intense, but you're almost done. Just finish, pass the bar, and then you can tinker with technology as a hobby. Hell, you could even specialize in tech law if you want to combine your interests." The idea of practicing tech law had been suggested by career counselors, but it missed the point entirely. I didn't want to regulate technology, I wanted to create it. I wanted to build the future, not argue about it in courtrooms. "I appreciate your concern," I said carefully, "but I've made up my mind. I'm going to finish the semester and then withdraw." Marcus shook his head in disgust. "Wait until Mom and Dad hear about this. They're going to lose their minds." That evening, I called my parents and asked if I could come home for dinner. I spent the 3-hour drive to Westchester rehearsing what I would say, trying to find words that would help them understand my decision. The Coates family home was a testament to legal success. Built in the 1920s, the Georgian colonial sat on 2 manicured acres in one of the most exclusive neighborhoods in the county. Inside, the walls were lined with law books, judicial portraits, and photos of my parents with various political and legal luminaries. Mom was in the kitchen when I arrived, preparing her famous pot roast with the precision she brought to her closing arguments. Dad sat in his study, reviewing case files even though he had officially retired from active judging the previous year. "Sierra," Mom said, kissing my cheek, "you look thin. Are you eating enough? I know law school keeps you busy, but you need to take care of yourself." "I'm fine, Mom," I replied, my stomach churning with anxiety. "Is Dad free? I wanted to talk to both of you about something important." Her expression shifted instantly. 25 years of practicing law had given her an uncanny ability to read people. "Of course, dear. Let me get your father." We gathered in the formal dining room, the same room where they had celebrated my Harvard acceptance. The irony of the setting wasn't lost on me. "So," Dad began, settling into his chair with the authority that came from decades on the bench. "Marcus called. He said you've been having some doubts about law school." I had hoped to control the narrative, but Marcus had beaten me to it. "I wouldn't call them doubts exactly," I said carefully, "more like a realization that law isn't the right path for me." Mom set down her fork, her expression growing stern. "Sierra, every law student goes through periods of uncertainty. It's completely normal. The important thing is to push through and focus on the goal." "What if the goal is wrong?" I asked quietly. The question hung in the air like a challenge. Dad's face darkened, and I could see the judicial temperament that had made him famous for his tough sentencing. "Wrong?" he repeated. "Sierra, you're 3 months away from graduating from Harvard Law School. 3 months from a career that will provide you with security, respect, and the ability to make a real difference in the world. How exactly is that wrong?" "Because it's not what I want to do with my life," I said, my voice growing stronger. "I've been building technology companies, and they're successful. I have investors, clients, and a clear vision for the future. I want to pursue that instead." The silence that followed was broken only by the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. When Mom finally spoke, her voice was ice cold. "Technology companies?" she said. "You mean those little apps you've been playing with? Sierra, that's not a career, that's a hobby. It's time to be serious about your future." "I am being serious," I insisted. "One of my apps has over 100,000 users. I have a software platform that's generating 6-figure revenue. This isn't playing, this is building a real business." Dad leaned forward, his expression that of a judge about to deliver a harsh sentence. "Let me be very clear about something, Sierra. Success isn't measured by how many people download your app or how much money you make in the short term. Success is measured by building something lasting, something that contributes to society in a meaningful way. The law does that. Technology, for the most part, doesn't." His dismissal of my work was breathtaking in its arrogance. "Dad, technology is reshaping every aspect of society. The legal profession itself is being transformed by artificial intelligence and automation. I'm working on solutions that could revolutionize how legal research is conducted." "Exactly my point," Mom interjected. "You could be at the forefront of legal technology as a lawyer. You could specialize in intellectual property, technology law, or corporate transactions in the tech sector. You don't have to abandon your legal education to work with technology." They weren't listening. They couldn't see past their own preconceptions about what constituted a legitimate career. To them, technology was still the realm of social misfits and dropouts, not serious professionals. "I've made up my mind," I said finally. "I'm going to withdraw from law school at the end of the semester and focus on my technology ventures full-time." The explosion I had been dreading finally came. Dad's face turned red, and he stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "Absolutely not," he thundered. "I will not allow you to throw away everything we've worked for, everything this family represents, to chase some fantasy about becoming the next Steve Jobs." "You can't stop me," I said quietly. "I'm 26 years old. This is my decision to make." "You're right," Mom said, her voice deadly calm. "We can't stop you, but we don't have to support you either. If you drop out of law school, don't expect any financial help from us. Don't expect us to introduce you to our contacts or help you build your little technology business. You'll be on your own." The threat was clear, and it was devastating. My parents had significant connections in the business world, not just the legal community. Their support could have opened doors that might take years to open on my own. But their ultimatum also revealed something important about their love. It was conditional, dependent on my compliance with their vision of success. "I understand," I said, standing up from the table. I'm sorry you feel that way, but I'm going to pursue this path regardless. As I gathered my things to leave, Dad delivered the final blow. You're making the biggest mistake of your life, Sierra. Mark my words, in 5 years you'll be begging us to help you get back into law school. This technology nonsense will fizzle out, and you'll be left with nothing to show for it except wasted potential. I drove back to Cambridge that night with tears streaming down my face, but also with a strange sense of liberation. For the first time in my life, I was completely free to pursue my own path, without the weight of family expectations holding me back. The next few months were the most challenging of my life. I withdrew from Harvard Law School, officially abandoning 3 years of education and disappointing every professor who had invested in my success. The withdrawal process itself was humiliating. I had to meet with the dean of students, who tried repeatedly to convince me to take a leave of absence instead of permanently withdrawing. Miss Coates, Dean Richardson said during our final meeting, "You're making a decision that cannot be easily undone. Harvard Law School doesn't typically readmit students who withdraw so close to graduation. Are you absolutely certain about this path?" "I am," I replied, though my voice wavered slightly. "And what exactly are your plans?" he continued. "What career could possibly be worth abandoning a Harvard law degree?" I explained my technology platform and the early commercial success I'd achieved. Dean Richardson listened politely, but I could see the skepticism in his expression. "Technology startups are notoriously risky," he observed. "The failure rate is extremely high, particularly for young entrepreneurs without business experience. Are you prepared for the possibility that this venture might not succeed?" The question haunted me as I moved out of my comfortable apartment near campus and into a studio in Somerville. My savings account, depleted by 3 years of law school expenses, would cover my living costs for maybe 4 months. After that, I would need my business to generate enough revenue to support me, or I would be forced to find traditional employment without the law degree I had almost completed. The isolation was profound and immediate. My law school friends were consumed with bar exam preparation and job interviews at prestigious firms. They had no time for a dropout who'd chosen to pursue what they saw as a frivolous technology venture. My former study group stopped inviting me to their sessions. Classmates who had once sought my input on complex legal theories now avoided eye contact when we passed on the street. The silence from my family was deafening. My parents had been true to their word, cutting off all financial support and making it clear that I was no longer welcome at family gatherings. When my cousin Emma got engaged that spring, the wedding invitation was addressed only to my parents and Marcus. I learned about the celebration through social media photos, seeing my entire extended family gathered without me. But something remarkable happened in that isolation. Without the constant pressure to conform to their expectations, without the distraction of law school coursework that felt irrelevant to my goals, I flourished in ways I hadn't thought possible. My software platform, which I had formally named LegalMind, began attracting serious attention from potential clients. The artificial intelligence system I had developed could analyze legal documents and identify potential issues with 93% accuracy, significantly faster than any human lawyer could achieve the same results. The first major validation came through an unexpected source. Professor Williams, my former securities law professor who had publicly criticized my inattention during class, contacted me through email 6 weeks after my withdrawal. "Miss Coates," his message read, "I understand you've developed legal research software. My firm is looking for technological solutions to improve our due diligence processes. Would you be willing to provide a demonstration?" The irony was extraordinary. The same professor who had questioned my commitment to legal studies was now seeking to benefit from the technology work that had distracted me from his lectures. The demonstration took place at his firm's offices in downtown Boston. Partners and senior associates gathered in their main conference room as I connected my laptop to their presentation system. I had prepared meticulously, knowing that this could be the breakthrough that established my credibility in the legal community. LegalMind uses natural language processing and machine learning algorithms to analyze legal documents, I explained, pulling up a complex merger agreement on the screen. It can identify potential issues, flag inconsistencies, and suggest areas that require human review. I ran the software on a real contract they provided, a 100-page acquisition agreement that they had spent weeks reviewing manually. Within 4 minutes, Legal Mind had identified 6 potential problems that their human reviewers had missed, including a subtle liability clause that could have exposed their client to significant financial risk. The room fell silent as the partners absorbed what they had just witnessed. Finally, the managing partner spoke. "How much would it cost to license this software for our firm?" he asked. $15,000 per month for unlimited usage, I replied, a figure I had calculated based on the time savings the software could provide. "We'll take it," he said without hesitation. That single licensing agreement provided the financial foundation I needed to expand Legal Mind's capabilities. Within 6 months, I had signed contracts with 8 law firms across Boston and New York, generating over $100,000 in monthly recurring revenue. But success brought new challenges. As word spread about Legal Mind's capabilities, larger firms began expressing interest, requiring more sophisticated features and enterprise-level security protocols. I found myself working 18-hour days, coding new modules while simultaneously managing client relationships and business development. The loneliness was sometimes overwhelming. I would spend entire weeks without meaningful human conversation beyond client calls and vendor meetings. My former classmates were starting their legal careers, attending bar association events and building professional networks while I sat alone in my studio apartment debugging software code. The breakthrough that changed everything came during a particularly difficult period in my second year post-dropout. I had been working for 6 months to develop an advanced predictive analytics module that could assess the likely outcomes of legal disputes based on historical case data. The technical challenges were immense, requiring machine learning algorithms far more sophisticated than anything I had built before. I was stuck on a particularly complex problem involving natural language understanding when I received an unexpected email. Dr. Sarah Chen, a professor of computer science at MIT whom I had never met, had heard about my work through academic networks and wanted to discuss potential collaboration. "Ms. Coates," she wrote, "I've been following the development of Legal Mind with great interest. Your approach to legal document analysis is innovative, but I believe we could significantly enhance its capabilities by incorporating some advanced AI techniques my lab has been developing. Would you be interested in meeting to discuss potential partnership opportunities?" The meeting took place at her MIT office on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Dr. Chen was brilliant, with a resume that included groundbreaking research in artificial intelligence and machine learning. She had been following the legal technology space and believed that Legal Mind had the potential to become the dominant platform in the market. "Your instincts about legal AI are correct," she told me as we reviewed my code, "but you're trying to solve some very complex problems in isolation. My research team has been working on natural language processing techniques that could dramatically improve your software's accuracy and speed." The collaboration that emerged from that meeting transformed Legal Mind from a successful small business into a technology platform with the potential for massive scale. Dr. Chen's lab provided access to cutting-edge AI research, while I contributed deep understanding of legal workflows and market needs. Over the next year, we rebuilt Legal Mind's core architecture using advanced machine learning techniques. The improvements were dramatic. Document analysis speed increased by 400%, accuracy improved to 98.7%, and we added capabilities for legal research, case law analysis, and predictive litigation modeling. The enhanced platform attracted attention from venture capital firms. TechCrunch wrote a feature article about Legal Mind's potential to disrupt the legal industry. Legal publications began covering our software as an example of how artificial intelligence could augment rather than replace human lawyers. My first major fundraising round came in the spring of my 3rd year post-dropout. After months of presentations to venture capital firms, I closed a Series A funding round of $15 million, led by a prominent Silicon Valley firm that specialized in enterprise software investments. The validation was overwhelming. Investors who typically funded established entrepreneurs with advanced degrees and track records were betting significant money on a law school dropout with a revolutionary vision for legal technology. But perhaps the most meaningful validation came from an unexpected source. Marcus called me on the evening after the funding announcement was published in the Wall Street Journal. "Sierra?" His voice was tentative, uncertain. "I saw the news about your funding round. Congratulations." It was the first time we had spoken since that disastrous lunch 3 years earlier. "Thank you," I replied carefully. "Listen," he continued, "I wanted you to know that I've been following Legal Minds' development. Several firms in Boston are using your software, and the feedback has been incredible. I may have been wrong about the viability of your technology work." The admission felt monumental coming from someone who had dismissed my ambitions so categorically. "I appreciate you saying that," I said. "There's something else," Marcus added. "Whitman Hayes is looking into legal technology solutions. Our productivity has been declining relative to firms that have embraced AI tools. Would you be willing to give us a presentation?" The request was loaded with irony. The same firm that represented everything my family valued in legal practice was now seeking help from the technology venture they had ridiculed. "I'd be happy to present to your firm," I replied. "But Marcus, I want you to know this isn't about proving anyone wrong. Legal Mind succeeds when it helps lawyers serve their clients better." "I understand," he said quietly. "And Sierra? I'm proud of what you've built." Those words meant more to me than any venture capital investment or media coverage. My brother, who had witnessed my parents' disappointment and shared their skepticism about my choices, was finally acknowledging that I had been right to pursue my own path. The technology press started taking notice. Harvard Business Review published a case study about Legal Minds' impact on legal productivity. Forbes featured me in their 30 Under 30 list for enterprise technology. TechCrunch covered our Series A funding round, which raised $15 million from prominent venture capital firms. Throughout this period, I heard nothing from my family. I sent Christmas cards and birthday wishes, but received no responses. The silence was painful, but it also motivated me to prove that their dismissal had been short-sighted. Year 2 brought international expansion. Law firms in London, Toronto, and Sydney began licensing Legal Mind, and I opened satellite offices to support our growing global client base. I was invited to speak at legal technology conferences, where partners from major firms listened intently to my presentations about the future of legal practice. The irony was exquisite. The same legal community that my parents had spent their careers serving was now embracing technology that they had dismissed as a hobby. I was transforming the profession they revered and doing it without their help or approval. By year 3, Legal Mind had become the dominant player in legal AI. We had over 300 law firms as clients, including several of the prestigious white shoe firms in Boston and New York. Our software was being used to review billions of dollars in contracts and legal documents annually. But success in the technology world brought unexpected challenges. As Legal Mind grew, we began acquiring smaller legal tech companies to expand our capabilities. Each acquisition required significant legal work, ironically bringing me back into contact with the profession I had abandoned. It was during one of these acquisition meetings that I first heard about Whitman, Hayes, and Associates facing financial difficulties. The firm where Marcus worked had been slow to embrace legal technology, and their traditional billable hour model was becoming increasingly unsustainable as clients demanded more efficiency. My investment advisor, Patricia Chen, mentioned it casually during our quarterly review. "There's buzz that some of the old guard Boston firms might be acquisition targets," she said. "Whitman Hayes, in particular, is struggling. Their revenue per partner has dropped 30% over the last 2 years." I tried to appear nonchalant, but internally my mind was racing. Whitman Hayes was more than just another law firm to me. It was the symbol of everything my family valued, everything I had supposedly thrown away when I dropped out of law school. "Tell me more about their situation," I said carefully. Patricia pulled up their financial information on her laptop. "Classic disruption scenario," she explained. "They've been doing business the same way for decades, but their clients are increasingly demanding fixed fee arrangements and faster turnaround times. Meanwhile, firms that have embraced legal technology are eating their lunch." The idea formed slowly at first, then with increasing clarity and determination. What if I acquired Whitman Hayes? Not just to own a law firm, but to demonstrate that the technology approach I had chosen was not just viable but superior to the traditional model my family had championed. Over the next few months, I quietly researched Whitman Hayes' financial situation. The firm was indeed struggling, with several major clients having moved to competitors who offered more efficient services. Their partnership was split between older lawyers who resisted change and younger associates who were frustrated by the firm's refusal to modernize. I hired a team of investment bankers to approach Whitman Hayes discreetly about a potential acquisition. The initial response was predictably dismissive. A technology company buying a prestigious law firm was almost unheard of, and the partners were skeptical about whether I understood their business. But as their financial situation continued to deteriorate, pragmatism began to override pride. I structured an offer that would provide immediate cash infusion while allowing the existing partners to retain significant autonomy in day-to-day operations. The negotiations were complex and often contentious. Several partners threatened to leave rather than work for a tech startup, while others recognized that acquisition might be their only path to survival. I remained patient, letting the firm's declining revenues speak for themselves. Throughout this process, Marcus had no idea that his sister was the potential buyer. I had structured the deal through multiple holding companies and investment vehicles, keeping my personal involvement carefully hidden. I wanted the terms to be settled before he learned the truth. The breakthrough came during a particularly difficult negotiation session in late fall. The firm's managing partner, Harrison Whitman III, admitted that they were facing an existential crisis. "The legal profession is changing faster than we can adapt," he said with obvious reluctance. "Our clients want services that we're not equipped to provide. We need technological expertise, but we don't know how to acquire it." "That's exactly what we can provide," I replied. LegalMind isn't just software, it's a comprehensive approach to legal practice that combines human expertise with artificial intelligence. We can help your lawyers become more efficient and effective, which benefits both the firm and your clients. The final negotiations took place over Thanksgiving weekend, while most people were with their families. I spent the holiday in conference rooms with lawyers and investment bankers, hammering out the details of the acquisition. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was giving up family time to buy the firm where my estranged brother worked. On December 15th, exactly 5 years after I had dropped out of Harvard Law School, the deal was finalized. LegalMind Technologies had acquired Whitman, Hayes and Associates for $47 million, instantly making me one of the youngest people ever to own a major law firm. The announcement sent shockwaves through both the legal and technology communities. The legal press struggled to understand how a dropout from Harvard Law School had become powerful enough to acquire one of Boston's most established firms. The technology press celebrated it as validation of the disruptive potential of legal AI. But the most important audience for this news was much smaller and more personal. Marcus learned about the acquisition the same way as everyone else in the firm, through an all-hands email from the managing partner. I had specifically requested that employees be notified before the public announcement, wanting to ensure that Marcus heard the news from official channels rather than through media coverage. I didn't have to wait long for his reaction. My phone rang within an hour of the announcement. "Sierra?" Marcus's voice was strained, uncertain. "Is this some kind of joke?" "Hello, Marcus," I said calmly. "How are you?" "How am I?" he repeated, his voice rising. "How am I? My sister just bought my law firm. The sister who dropped out of law school is now my boss. How do you think I am?" I had imagined this conversation countless times over the past 5 years, but the reality was more surreal than any scenario I had envisioned. "I understand this is surprising," I said, "but I want you to know that this acquisition is about the business, not about our family history." "Bullshit," Marcus snapped. "This is about revenge, isn't it? You're trying to prove some point about Dad and Mom being wrong about your dropout decision." His accusation stung because it contained a grain of truth. The acquisition wasn't solely about revenge, but vindication had certainly been a motivating factor. However, I had learned enough about business to know that emotional decisions rarely led to sustainable success. "Marcus, I bought Whitman Hayes because it's a good strategic fit for LegalMind's expansion into full-service legal consulting," I explained. "The firm has excellent client relationships and talented lawyers, but it needs technological infrastructure to remain competitive. We can provide that." "And what happens to the lawyers who don't want to work for their Harvard Law dropout boss?" he asked bitterly. "They're free to leave," I replied honestly, "but I hope they'll stay and see what we can accomplish together." The future of legal practice is collaborative between human expertise and artificial intelligence. Firms that embrace this model will thrive, Those that don't will become obsolete. There was a long pause before Marcus spoke again, his voice quieter but still strained. Mom and Dad are going to lose their minds when they hear about this. I had been wondering when my parents would learn about the acquisition. The legal community in Boston was small and interconnected. News of this magnitude would reach them quickly. Have you spoken to them? I asked. Not yet, Marcus admitted. I wanted to talk to you first, to understand what the hell is going on. What's going on, I said carefully, is that I built something significant while everyone was convinced I was wasting my life. Legal Mind is now valued at over $200 million, and we're transforming how legal work gets done. So this is about proving them wrong, Marcus said. No, I replied, surprising myself with the honesty of my response. This is about building something I believe in, regardless of what anyone else thinks. The fact that it contradicts their predictions is just a byproduct. Over the next few weeks, the integration of Whitman Hayes into the Legal Mind ecosystem proceeded more smoothly than I had anticipated. Many of the firm's lawyers were initially skeptical about working with AI technology, but as they saw how it enhanced their productivity and accuracy, resistance gave way to enthusiasm. Marcus, to his credit, threw himself into learning our systems. His legal expertise combined with Legal Mind's analytical capabilities made him incredibly effective at complex corporate transactions. Within a month, his billable productivity had increased by 40%, while his stress levels had actually decreased. I hate to admit this, he told me during one of our weekly integration meetings, but your technology actually makes the work more interesting. Instead of spending hours on document review, I can focus on strategic analysis and client counseling. That's exactly the point, I replied. Technology should amplify human capabilities, not replace them. The real test came when my parents finally contacted me. Dad called on a Friday evening in January, 6 weeks after the acquisition announcement. Sierra, he said without preamble, your mother and I think it's time we had a conversation. My heart rate immediately accelerated. 5 years of silence, and now they wanted to talk. I'm listening, I said carefully. We'd like to invite you to dinner this Sunday, he continued. There are things we need to discuss about your recent business activities. The formal tone told me everything I needed to know about their mindset. This wasn't a reconciliation, it was a summit meeting between opposing parties. I'll be there, I said. Sunday dinner at the Coates family home felt like walking into a time capsule. Nothing had changed in the 5 years since my last visit. The same furniture, the same photographs, the same imposing legal library. But I had changed fundamentally, and I could see my parents struggling to reconcile the successful business owner sitting at their table with the daughter they had dismissed as a dropout. Mom had prepared my favorite meal, roast chicken with herb stuffing, but the atmosphere was too tense for me to appreciate the gesture. We made stilted small talk through the appetizer and main course, dancing around the obvious reason for this reunion. Finally, over dessert, Dad cleared his throat in the way that had always preceded important family discussions. Sierra, he began, we owe you an acknowledgement. When you left law school, we believed you were making a catastrophic mistake. We were wrong about the potential of your technology work. It was the closest thing to an apology I was likely to get from Judge Harrison Coates, but it felt insufficient after 5 years of exile. Thank you, I said simply. Mom leaned forward, her expression intense. But we need to understand something. This acquisition of Marcus's firm, was it motivated by business reasons or by a desire for revenge against our family? The question hung in the air like an accusation. I had expected it, but hearing it spoken aloud still stung. Both, I answered honestly. Whitman Hayes is a strategically valuable acquisition that fits our expansion plans. But yes, there's some satisfaction in demonstrating that the path you rejected as foolish has led to success. Dad's expression hardened. So you used your business success to humiliate us professionally? No, I said firmly. I used my business success to build something meaningful. If you feel humiliated, that's your interpretation, not my intention. Your intention, Mom said coldly, was to prove that we were wrong about your decision to drop out. Mission accomplished, Sierra. You've made your point. Their inability to see beyond the personal dynamics to the actual business accomplishment was frustrating but not surprising. Even now, with overwhelming evidence of my success, they were focused on family politics rather than substance. You're still not getting it, I said, my voice rising slightly. This isn't about proving you wrong or making a point. This is about building the future of legal practice. Legal Mind is revolutionizing how lawyers work, making them more efficient and effective. The acquisition of Whitman Hayes allows us to demonstrate these improvements at scale. By making our son work for his sister, Dad said bitterly. By giving Marcus access to tools that make him a better lawyer, I corrected. Ask him yourself how his work has improved since the integration. The conversation continued for another hour, covering 5 years of mutual disappointment and misunderstanding. My parents eventually acknowledged that my business success was impressive, but they couldn't move past their sense that I had somehow betrayed family expectations. As I prepared to leave, Mom made one final attempt at connection. Despite everything that's happened, she said, "We're proud of what you've accomplished. We just wish you had found a way to succeed without rejecting everything we taught you about the importance of traditional professional success." I didn't reject the importance of professional success, I replied. I redefined it. The relationship with my family remained complicated even after that dinner. We began communicating regularly again, but the fundamental philosophical differences that had led to our estrangement remained unresolved. They could accept my success, but not the path I had taken to achieve it. Marcus and I, however, developed a stronger relationship than we had ever had before. Working together at the integrated firm allowed us to combine our different strengths in ways that benefited both the business and our clients. He brought deep legal expertise and client relationships. I brought technological innovation and strategic vision. "You know what's funny?" he said one day as we reviewed quarterly revenue reports. "I'm making more money as your employee than I ever did as a traditional associate. The efficiency gains from your AI systems have increased my billable value significantly." "That's not funny," I replied. "That's the point. Technology should enhance human capabilities, not replace them." 1 year after the acquisition, Whitman Hayes had become the most profitable law firm in Boston on a per-partner basis. Our integrated model of human expertise supported by artificial intelligence was attracting clients from competitors and generating premium fees for superior results. The legal industry was taking notice. Harvard Law School invited me to speak about the future of legal practice. The American Bar Association asked me to keynote their annual technology conference. Legal publications featured our firm as an example of successful innovation in a traditionally conservative profession. But the most meaningful recognition came from an unexpected source. Dad called me on the second anniversary of the acquisition with news that surprised me. "The Federal Bar Association is giving you their Innovation in Legal Practice Award," he said. "They've asked me to present it to you at their annual dinner." The symbolism was overwhelming. Judge Harrison Coates, the man who had dismissed my technology ambitions as frivolous, would be publicly recognizing my contributions to the legal profession. "Are you comfortable with that?" I asked. "I'm proud of it," he replied, and for the first time in years I heard genuine warmth in his voice. The awards dinner was held at the Fairmont Copley Plaza in Boston, attended by hundreds of lawyers, judges, and legal academics. As Dad approached the podium to introduce me, I felt a complex mixture of vindication and reconciliation. "The recipient of this year's Innovation Award," he began, "has transformed legal practice in ways that few of us imagined possible 5 years ago. She has demonstrated that technological advancement and legal excellence are not opposing forces but complementary capabilities that, when combined effectively, serve clients and society better than either could alone." He paused, looking directly at me before continuing. "It gives me great pride to present this award to my daughter, Sierra Coates, founder and CEO of Legal Mind Technologies." The applause was thunderous, but what mattered most to me was the genuine pride I saw in Dad's face as he handed me the Crystal Award. In my acceptance speech, I reflected on the journey from law school dropout to legal technology pioneer. 5 years ago, I told the audience, many people believed that leaving law school was the end of my career in law. Tonight, I hope I've demonstrated that innovation often requires abandoning conventional paths to create new ones. After the ceremony, my parents joined Marcus and me for a private celebration dinner. The conversation was easier than it had been in years, focused on business accomplishments and future plans rather than past disagreements. "So what's next for Legal Mind?" Mom asked as we shared dessert. "International expansion," I replied. We're planning to acquire firms in London and Frankfurt, creating the first truly global legal technology platform. And personally, Dad asked, any plans for marriage, family, the traditional markers of adult success? I laughed at his choice of words. I'm focused on building something meaningful first. The personal aspects of life will follow when the time is right. Just don't wait too long, Mom said gently. Professional success is important, but it's not everything. The advice felt strange coming from the woman who had prioritized career achievement above all else during my childhood, but I recognized it as another form of reconciliation. As we said goodbye that evening, Dad pulled me aside for a private moment. Sierra, I want you to know that I was wrong about technology being a lesser career path. What you've built isn't just a business, it's a contribution to the legal profession that will benefit society for generations. Thank you, Dad, I said. That means more to me than you know. I also want to apologize, he continued, for making our love and support conditional on your career choices. That was unfair and counterproductive. The apology I had never expected to receive felt like the final piece of a puzzle clicking into place. Today, 5 years after acquiring Whitman Hayes, Legal Mind Technologies operates in 12 countries and serves over 1,500 law firms worldwide. We've expanded beyond legal AI into broader professional services technology, but our core mission remains the same, using artificial intelligence to enhance human capabilities rather than replace them. Marcus is now the managing partner of our Boston operations, overseeing the integration of acquired firms into our technology platform. We work together seamlessly, combining his legal expertise with my technological vision to create solutions neither of us could develop alone. My relationship with my parents continues to evolve. They've become some of my strongest advocates, referring potential clients and speaking proudly about Legal Mind's accomplishments. The conditional love that characterized my childhood has been replaced by genuine appreciation for the path I chose. But perhaps the most satisfying aspect of this journey has been proving that success doesn't require conformity to traditional expectations. The technology career that my family dismissed as frivolous has not only been financially rewarding, but has also made a meaningful contribution to the legal profession they revered. So what about you? Have you ever had to choose between family expectations and personal passion? How did you find the courage to pursue your own path despite opposition? Share your experiences in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about proving doubters wrong and creating success on your own terms. The most profound lesson I've learned through this journey is that validation from others, even family, cannot be the foundation of your decisions. When I dropped out of Harvard Law School, I was terrified of disappointing my parents, but I was more terrified of living a life that wasn't authentically mine. The acquisition of Whitman Hayes wasn't just about business strategy or family vindication. It was about demonstrating that innovation requires courage, that success can be achieved through paths that others don't understand, and that sometimes the biggest risks lead to the greatest rewards. Looking back, I realized that my parents' initial rejection was as much about their own fears as it was about my choices. They had built their lives around traditional markers of success, and my departure from that path challenged their fundamental beliefs about what constituted a meaningful career. But time and results have a way of changing perspectives. The technology that they once dismissed as a hobby is now integral to how legal work is performed. The dropout they worried would amount to nothing has built something that enhances the profession they dedicated their lives to serving. As I write this, sitting in my office overlooking Boston Harbor, I can see the building where Marcus works, where hundreds of lawyers use AI technology to serve their clients more effectively. The distance between that building and where I started feels both vast and insignificant, a reminder that the most important journeys are often measured not in miles but in the courage to define success for yourself. The compass pendant my mother left me has guided me well, but the most important navigation has come from trusting my own sense of direction, even when no one else could see the destination. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, sometimes the path that looks like failure to others is actually the road to your greatest success.